Hello and welcome. I'm Ed Pearson. I'm the Senior Enterprise Officer for Global Banking School. And today I'm doing a video on the Wednesday workshop series. This is part of the Think It program. So we're here to support entrepreneurial businesses within Global Banking School. And as part of that early stage thinking it process, this video sits very, very neatly within that context. So today's video is on how to create the time to start your new business. So why this video in Think It really is what I want to have a look at. First of all, it's a common problem that I come across in the Enterprise Hub. I'm here today within the hub, but lots of students will come in and say, I just don't have time. I've got assignments, I've got work, I've got family commitments. I've got this great business idea. How on earth do I create enough time then to go and run a business when I'm already busy? And let's face it, time. It doesn't really matter if you've got a business or not. Time management is a huge problem. Lots of people these days run around with that badge of busy. So whenever I ask people as I'm up and down the corridors here at GBS, how are you doing? Oh, I'm very busy. Everybody's always busy. But that's like it's a little bit weird. If everybody's so busy, how are things getting done? And really, that's what I'm going to look at here in this video. And by the end of it, I'm going to give you an idea on how to manage your time more effectively. That'll create a little bit of time to go and run a business. So I'm going to minimize myself out of the way here. You don't need to see me in this video necessarily, and we'll dive straight in. So I want you to ponder this first of all. Here's some intriguing numbers. We've all got the same amount of time, and there's three numbers on the screen there. Some of you will have already worked out what this means. And obviously the first one is how many minutes we have in a day, 1,440. How many we have in a week, 10,080. And how many we have in a year, 524,160. Everybody has the same amount of time. And this is a first key takeaway. Everybody has the same amount of time. And when we think about it, it's so obvious. But then how do we explain all the multimillionaires that we see in the news, and how do they make their wealth, and how do they get businesses off the ground? Many of them also have busy lives. So I'm not denying that things can get a little bit difficult with time, but there must be something else deeper going on. That's the first thing that I take away really with time management. So it's not a case of sitting back and saying, hey, I'm busy. The first thing to work out is, how do I free up time? And there must be a way, because others have done it before. And whilst all these people that you probably look up to, the Stephen Bartletts, the Peter Thiels, the Whitney Wolfs of this world, the Bransons, and you're sitting and looking at them, they've got the same number of minutes that you had, but somehow they've done it, and they don't have any special skills. They're not superhuman. They may appear at some time, but there really is something else going on in here. So let's ponder a little technique and a few ideas in this video to go and work out really how we might get around this issue. Let's start with Mr. Bill Gates. He has a lovely quote that I love. Most people overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 10 years. It was this quote that I first saw a few years back that really got me thinking around time management. And I was trying to work out how big businesses had been built and how they managed to do stuff. And Bill Gates first gave this curious quote. And I love it because it sort of described my life. I did all right for a decade when I look back, but at the time it felt like I was just constantly going from mess to mess. Essentially, I just hadn't got anything under control, and it started me off on this path of wondering about time management. So I'm going to share with you what I think is sensible steps for getting on top of this. And thanks, Mr. Gates, for giving me a little idea that there may be more out there that I could be doing. So where do I think the troubles begin? Right, so there's a curious number on the screen here. It's 80 and 20. There's a wonderful, I think, Italian mathematician many years ago, and his name was Pareto. So Pareto's law is the 80-20 rule. And that gets very interesting. What it basically tells you, this ratio determines everything in our lives. So if I give you a quick example, in your wardrobe, you will wear 20% of your clothes 80% of the time. That's Pareto's law in action. If we look at the car showroom on the right-hand side of the screen here, if it was a floor space there, so they've got tiles on the floor, 20% of the tiles will get 80% of the wear. 80% of the tiles will only get 20% of the wear. So this rule of 80-20 is absolutely everywhere in life. You just cannot escape it. And part of that is the reason why we overrun on projects or getting stuff delivered or feeling like we don't do enough within a space of time, or where we feel like we're getting nowhere. And the reason for that is, let's say we set some time and it's, let's say it's a month to go and get a business off the ground. What most people will do is they'll hopefully sit down, ponder it for a few minutes, put out a plan, and then start to build a business and relate to how much work they can do within a 1 month period. So when we start to look at that as an issue, what happens is Pareto, the 80-20 rule, starts to kick in on time. So this is why Pareto is so important. So if I'm 80% of the way through the month and I've got 20% of the month left and I've only done 80% of the work to go and get my business off the ground in a month, it will feel at that point like everything's on target. It will feel like everything's under control, and we'll be confident we can go and deliver, and we'll get everything done for the end of that month, and we'll have a launch then for the business. But good old Pareto's law now kicks in. We've got 20% of the time remaining, and we've got what looks like 20% of the project left to fulfill. The problem is, in that last 20% of the time remaining and that 20% of the project to fulfill, it's going to take roughly 80% of the time to deliver. So just follow me there. We're 80% of the way into the project. We think we're on track. There's only 20% to go. And this will happen in lots of places. Maybe it's an assignment for GBS. Maybe if it's in your workplace and your boss says, you know, are we on track? And you confidently say yes, because everything looks like it's going to be delivered. That last 20% of the project will take 80% of the time to be delivered. And this is one of the reasons we seem to run out of time. And if we're looking to create time to open up a business, as we're running out of time and we start to miss our own self-imposed, usually, deadlines, then suddenly we start to lose that enthusiasm for business. So how do I get around this first issue? First of all, it's one of the takeaways for you. The first thing I look to do is try and map out the whole project. So what am I trying to do? Launch a campaign, a marketing campaign, launch a business, or whatever it might be. I'm going to map out a reasonable time frame that looks manageable for me. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to try and get 90% of that work done in the first 10% of time available to me. So that's my first takeaway. Nobody really escapes 80-20. So it's a little bit of hard work. So I'll just repeat that again. I'm looking to try and do 90% of the project in the first 10% of the time available to me. So if I've got 30 days worth of effort, so it's a 1 month project in this example, what I'm trying to do is 90% of the project completed in the first 3 days of the project, right? And you're probably sitting there going, that's impossible. It can't be done. This is where I get really busy, and I'm going to share with you a couple of techniques of how to squeeze all this stuff into time. We're going to warp time slightly and show you how to get more done in the same amount of time as normal. So first technique, get 90% of your work done in the first 10% if you can. I'll let you into another secret. I've never actually managed it. but I have done something close to 90% in about 15% of the time. So I know I'm well on track. Now, just because I've done that amount of work and I know I'm well on track to get everything done in my project, the other trick here now is to keep that momentum going. Do not slow down because you think you've reached the end of the project. I've got to keep that pace going and I've got to make sure I get this delivered and driven over the line. So let's just have a quick look at about how you might consider doing that. So the first thing, or the next thing that I started to look at, and there's a couple of books around this, is how long can I actually do effective work for? Because when you heard that last statement, do 90% of a 1 month project in 3 days, you're probably sitting there looking at that thinking, crikey, that sounds like it's going to be really tough. And the second bit, keeping that momentum going, well, as the old saying goes, you can't sprint a marathon. But if you're going to go and deliver a project really quickly and you're working at superhuman speeds for 3 days, it's not realistic to just keep sprinting down that track for the next 27 days to go and get the project done. So what I started to look at then was, what's the effective amount of time that you can get almost superhuman output done very, very quickly, very, very effectively to go and get you on target to deliver stuff and start, in this instance, talking about delivering a business, how to go and get your business up and running in a relatively short space of time. And I uncovered a couple of interesting facts. So just pause for a moment and think, and maybe just pause the video while you write down a number. How long do you think you can maintain the most productive elements of output and efficiency in your work rate? How long do you think it is before that starts to dip? And you can do that in minutes or hours or days. I don't know what you think you are possible or capable of doing, but scribble down a number. So pause the video, scribble down a number, press play again, and let's share the science with you. Right, what did you write down? What number? I'm really intrigued. I'm going to share a few interesting stats for you. Harvard did a lot of work in this area looking at what is possible and what humans are actually capable of doing. So here's a few interesting facts. I had given you a little clue on the screen. So effective endurance of delivering anything, whether it's sport or business or whatever you're getting involved in, typically 40 to 45 minutes is the maximum endurance rate. It's why football games last 45 minutes a half. So there's the first clue. The number of goals that go in a football game in the UK, certainly, as I watch my favourite teams playing football, those last few minutes of the game, there are always late goals to be had up and down all the football leagues in the United Kingdom. And that's not a surprise, really, because most people's endurance is 40 to 45 minutes. That last 5 minutes, most of the team are now struggling to maintain that level of endurance, that fitness, that focus, that concentration. So all of a sudden, then goals start to creep in because concentration is lagging. And that is perfectly human. We are all human and we all have this ability. So it's playing into our psyche. It's playing into what we are and what it is to be human. A couple of other interesting facts to ponder as well. Typically, it's around 15 minutes before concentration starts to wane. So on the whole, we do get a couple of early goals. Football's a great analogy for this. We do get a couple of early goals. It does happen. Okay. But typically most goals in most games of a reasonable standard, it will be towards the middle, towards the end of the first half before you see your first goal. And that's because that first 15 minutes of a game, concentration's at its highest, endurance is at its highest, the efficacy of everything that you put into this game is still at its highest. Performance typically will dip So this is part of the Harvard University sort of reviews and what they looked at. Over thousands and thousands of people, performance starts to dip between 10 and 52 minutes. So even if you're sitting there going, Ed, I don't believe these stats you're throwing at me. 42 minutes really as maximum sort of efficient endurance. I don't quite believe it. I think I'm doing a lot more than that. Based on studies over thousands and thousands of people in their study, performance started to dip between 10 and 52 minutes. You've got in reality less than 1 hour to go and start delivering something sensible. And this is really, really important. You've got less than an hour, and probably, if you're lucky, you've got 40 to 45 minutes of reasonable output of work. Now, this applies whether it's football, it applies whether it's business, it applies in absolutely everything you do. Now, one bit of me sitting there going, that sounds frightening. We've got 45 minutes to go and deliver like everything at a reasonable rate. And on the other side of me, I'm going, right, now I know this. How should I structure my day then to go and deliver something? In this case, how do I deliver a new business? So I tried something out. I bought a 90-minute hourglass. It sits in my office, in my home office. I don't bring it into the GBS school, but I genuinely, hand on heart, have a 90-minute hourglass. And what I do is when I start work in the morning, I turn it over and I start to work. Now, all I want you to do in terms of finding time is I want you to find ideally 90 minutes in a day to go and deliver what you need to do to start your business. That's all that you will need. Now, that sounds impossible at the moment, probably, right? Now, I want you to divide that time up into manageable chunks. So if you've planned out a 1 month launch for your business, I want you to map it down into 90-minute chunks and then ideally get 2, 3, or 4 tasks or something like that in that 90-minute block. And then what you're going to do is you're going to tackle those tasks in blocks of 20 to 40, 45 minutes, something like that. If you've got something that's just a 20-minute task, find another 20-minute task to fit in there. And then after about 40, 45 minutes, take a break. Now, that break, you only need to do like a couple of minutes, maybe get up and put the kettle on, or if the kettle's on, just get yourself a drink and sit back down and get straight back into work. Maybe it's just to look up and look out the window. Maybe it's just to stand up, walk up and down a flight of stairs, and then sit back down and get back into work mode immediately. But this is absolutely focused, full-on effort. So the extremes I would go to, lock the door to your office. Let all distractions that might happen know that they are not to disturb you for 45 to 90 minutes while you're doing this task. It is absolutely of the utmost importance that you find this time. So I've worked with somebody who did this. I used to do an hour. I'll hold my hands up. I used to do an hour every day on my business. It's something that was just drilled into me when I started to work these rules out and shared them with my business coach at the time. So I would have an hour, and that hour, if you came to disturb me and you're an employee of my company, it was in your contract. It was explained to you on the induction. It was explained to you every 8 weeks. You do not come and disturb me during 1 hour. Because that 1 hour period of time for me, and you can do 90 minutes if you want to do a little bit longer, that is where you're actually going to create your business. You're going to create this dream lifestyle. You're going to create a future for your family, for you personally, for everybody that works in your company, if you've already got an existing company. So I can't imagine what is more important than that unless it is life-threatening. So what I really want to get across is this time is absolutely sacrosanct. You do not give it up for anything. It is that important to getting your business off the ground. And if you're serious about growing your business and you can't find the time, I'm just asking you to find maybe 45 minutes in a day, maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half. That's all I'm asking for. I've now got a 90-minute timer in my office at home. When I'm at home, I turn the timer, and whilst that sand is falling, nobody in the house disturbs me. I'm just left in peace. I just get on with stuff. And that's because if you stop or you get interrupted, it takes something like 15, 20 minutes to get back into an activity. So you've got to be so disciplined here if you really want to make some time to get your business off the ground. Now, alongside that, I would like you to log your activities. Nobody's going to look at this unless you want to share with me in the Enterprise Hub. You're always welcome to pop in. We can have a look at this together. But when you've got it all mapped out, just log how long things are taking, log what you're doing, get it into manageable blocks. I've got a friend who does 15-minute blocks for some reason. I think it's a bit too short for me. Typically, I'm logging what happens in 30-minute blocks, and I've got 3 of them in a 90-minute session. So I'm starting to log activities against the time I'm spending to go and get a project up and running. Now, if you haven't started a business yet, this is for future reference, because it will become more valuable to this what I'm asking you to do will become more valuable in time. If you have an existing business, this will become really, really valuable and useful to you in the space of 3 or 4 days. So I want you, first of all, to log your activities. If you've got an existing business, start now. You'll get benefit on this within a week. And if it's a brand new business, this won't make any sense to you right now, but within the matter of 2 to 3 weeks, this will be hugely valuable activity for you to undertake. Because the next thing we're going to start doing is we're going to look at the activities that you've managed to do in a 90-minute session. And then what I normally do is I place a value next to them. So let me give you an example what I mean by that. Let's imagine I'm running a company right now, and let's imagine I've got a company and I'm running it as a sole trader element or a limited company, but there's just me in the business. And I'm doing the work myself day to day, and I'm doing everything. And let's imagine there's a bookkeeping requirement. So I might feasibly be doing that for my own business in the early days. Now, I'm not a trained bookkeeper. So this gets interesting. When I start to look down my activities and see how long it took me to do my books, I don't know, it might have taken 45 minutes for me to sort out all the invoicing and bits and pieces that I need to sort out for VAT, for payments, for accounting purposes. It might take me 45 minutes a week to go and just have a look at that and get it all sorted out. Now, I'm not a bookkeeper. I don't really enjoy the finance side of business. I have to know it because that's the nature of the beast. And when you own your own company, you need to have an understanding of it. But there's people far better placed to do this for me. Now, the good news is a bookkeeper doesn't really cost much money at all. My last bookkeeper used to cost me, I think it was £100 a month or something like that. And she was far better at bookkeeping than I was. So the job that took me maybe 45 minutes, it would probably take her 20, 25 minutes. So she can do it in half the amount of time. That means she's on a decent hourly rate. When I look at it, it costs £100 a month, and I look at those 4 or 5 sessions a month where I'm spending nearly 4 or 5 hours on bookkeeping, and that's not actually helping me really move my business forward potentially. Then what I start to do is look at what I'm really worth per hour. So I'm looking at what I've done in my activities. So my activity levels have already increased because I've got 90-minute sessions. And now I'm looking at what I'm actually doing day to day. And now I'm putting an hourly value next to it. So me doing the bookkeeping is probably not a very good use of time. There are people that are far better than it, can do it faster than me. It will cost me a little bit of money, but in reality, it's a much better place for me to go and do some other stuff, maybe around growing my business using marketing, than it is for me to do bookkeeping. So using that example, now what I do is I look at all the activities I've listed in 90 minutes. And then I start to think about eating, and I've got a little image here of two ladies here just eating in a very nice restaurant by the looks of it. But what we need to actually use is the acronym EAT. And the acronym there, EAT, stands for Eliminate, Automate, Transfer. So what I'm going to do is look at all these activities that are listed there. And the first step I'm going to do to free up more time is work out who can do a job better than me. And I'm going to transfer this job, this activity to them. So bookkeeping in that last slide, fantastic example of that. If I start to look at things like logo design, again, I know the elements of it, but it would take me a long time to develop a logo, for example. So I might as well transfer that out. If my bookkeeping is becoming a problem because the invoicing isn't going very well, I know I've got zero accounting software for my own business. So what I do there is I automate it. It's got a fantastic tool in there that will help me create invoices, and I can send them automatically. And if I've got my customers on repeating direct debit, it will do it at the press of a button. So I'll start to automate some of the stuff I'm doing manually. And then there's other things that I sit down and I might just eliminate it completely. And this will always surprise you. I'm just trying to think of a couple of good examples from my own business, but I was getting stuck in some meetings where I had virtually zero input and literally had very little influence. Okay, I owned the company and I could stop these things, but there's no point in me, for example, sitting down in the administrators meeting. I used to have half a dozen people working for me in my company, and we would have a weekly meeting with the administrators to talk about workflow, to talk about any bottlenecks, to talk about, any bits of paperwork that needed changing. Well, look, they were competent enough and great enough to be able to do that on their own. They certainly didn't need me in that meeting. And when I was looking at the fact that it was taking an hour a week for me to go and sit in that meeting, the first thing I did was I eliminated it, especially as those kinds of activities, while they help the flow of the business, typically don't generate any sort of income for me directly. So first of all is I eat all the activities, eliminate, automate, transfer, and I try and get rid of as many of them as I possibly can. Now, a general rule, but I've not come across a business where it can't be broken, is the only thing that you don't let go of is your sales and marketing. And the first thing typically most companies try and let go of is marketing and then their sales, which is a little bit counterintuitive, but just retain that ability to grow your business. Because if you're eliminating, automating, transfer all your tasks off your desk and still getting stuff done that needs to get done by doing this process, all that really leaves is you there with your company. And if you've got now time and you've got these 90-minute slots in your diary now, then the first thing you should potentially be looking at doing is, how do I grow my business to the next level? Or potentially, how do I scale it to the next level? That gets even more interesting. So fill all those tasks that you did with time that's just around growing business. Now, this is a bit of a process I've taken you through. How do you start your business? We get it underway quickly. And then within a matter of 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a month, we'll start to actually look at the activities and start to focus in only on the things that are bringing in the most money. And this really is the key to time management, finding small blocks of time, working out what the activities are, making sure we're only focusing on the stuff that's really making the money. Now, so all well and good. Now, the other questions that I get asked around time management, and I'm just trying to really put myself in your shoes as the viewer now for this video. The thing that I'm trying to get my head around is where you might be and what questions might be in your head. So the ones that I commonly get asked, the first one is, how do I get a work-life balance? If you're asking that question, this video that you've just seen, this is definitely for you. Because if I've now crammed lots of work into very small spaces of time, it might free up enough time for you to go and have maybe family time, or go and get down the gym once a week, or reconnect with friends, or whatever you want to do. Now, just a word of advice, really. I don't think I've ever managed work-life balance correctly. So take whatever I say now with a pinch of salt. I think getting lots of work into small periods of time is a great way forward. I also recognize that sometimes I've still got to contractually fulfill the stuff I've agreed with my customers. So the 90 minutes is all about growing the company. I've now generated all this extra work to do, and then I might take the rest of the time now to deliver what I've just promised to customers. So I've got to deliver the service I've offered, or deliver the products, or something has to happen so that the customers looked after. And that might fill up a lot of time. Now, what I tend to do is I sit down with my wife and I just go, look, I'm going to be busy for the next, and then I talk about the time frame. Next 2 weeks are going to be really busy. I've got visits to do. I've got people to go and meet. I've got my work to do to grow the company. And then I've got to fulfill what I've just offered in the company to clients. I'm going to run out of time. And I agree that up front with her. It doesn't always go smoothly, as I'm sure, you can probably guess. But there's no surprises there. So what I try and do is get all my work out of the way and spend some time with my wife. Right now, let's assume that's going very well. That's cool, but quite often it doesn't. But what I will get very good at doing is making time available through the calendar year where we get lots of quality time together. So what I'm really getting at is I can be a really, really good business owner for lots of time and a very poor husband for quite a lot of time. And then at moments in the year, I'll be a really, really great husband for a few weeks, and then I'll be really, really poor in business, right? And it's a balance, and it's a bit like the seesaw you can see in front of you on the screen. Sometimes, you're down at the one end, and other times you are riding high, and the other people are down at the other end. I don't think it ever really gets into balance. So I just want to share that with you because I don't want to pull the punches around business. I want to just try and be honest about it. And then hopefully you'll take those words and you'll find hopefully a way to work through and just work a way out where you can plan ahead. And I think if you share that with the people around you, the nearest and dearest in your life, and they have a better understanding of what's going on and when they're going to get great time with you, most of the time that works. It's not 100%. Nothing else is in this world. Perhaps it's an 80-20 rule in itself. 80% of the time this works, 20% of the time you're going to still have those moments. But just be really good at business when you're good at business, when you're in the business. Be really good about being great at your social activity when you're focused on social activity. That's my first tip there. And the other thing, the other key to getting balance in life, and I got this, I think, from Mackenzie Scott, who's the ex-wife of Jeff Bezos at Amazon. And I'm attributing it to her. I'm sure she said something like, I was there in the marriage with Jeff, watching him building this huge Amazon empire. And when they asked her what really made the big difference was his ability to say no. So get really, really good at saying no to stuff. Work out what's really, really important in your business, and then say no to everything else, or eliminate it, automate it, or transfer it. And that will also free up some time, and you take that time. It's what you do with the time you're freed up that will make a big difference here. Take that freed up time and use that to build your business in this instance, or use that extra time to go and spend time, social activities, friends, family, the gym, whatever it is that you like to get up to in your social hours. So I hope that has helped, and I hope you find some reassurance more than anything in there. So what we've just covered there is we've looked at 80/20, why projects overrun, and how we come and stuck through that. We've also got the ability now to work out how much time we actually need to grow a business. So 90 minutes a day is enough. An hour a day, that's what I used to do. That will be plenty. And then once we start to log activities that we're doing in those 60 to 90 minutes in a day, then we can start to eliminate, automate, transfer. Yeah, we can start to eat them. And then finally, we can have honest conversations around balance with the people that are nearest and dearest to you. And the last thing, remember, we have to get better at saying no. That is the key to creating more time to generate generate growth in your business. I hope you found this thought-provoking. If you're looking to access any further help, support, guidance for your business, then you can do that through the Enterprise Hub. So check that out at GBS. Ask your lecturers to reach out to me. My name's Ed Pearson, or you can reach out direct through our Teams profile. The fastest way, though, to get through to me is to use the email that's on the screen here. That is enterprise@globalbanking.ac.uk. So my name is Ed. Just reach out. Go, Ed, I just need some bit of helping hand with some of the stuff you've talked about recently. And we'll take that all from there. But for now, this is a Wednesday workshop series. It's part of the Think It phase of growth for GBS. And I'm going to stop what we're doing right here. I'm back, and I will see you all soon. Bye for now.